How's it going, YouTube? Let me know if my video is too loud. We're going to be starting at the second John. This series has been about who is Jesus, um, and I guess I just want to show you why I came to believe the Bible, and it was based on the character of Jesus himself, one of the founders of the Christian faith. Um, uh, well, the founder of the Christian faith. Uh, and you can get to technicalities of God and stuff like that. Uh, but yeah, I'm gonna start on number two. Yesterday, I mean, what was it? Last week, I started on number one, and like from a passage in John chapter one, and I think it was like something like 35 to something like that, and it described Jesus as just being a very rational, logical person, asking people about why they believe, and not just to take things for face value, but just asking questions, very good questions. Um, when they have show blind faith, he kind of tried them on it, like, do you just believe because of this? Well, we're gonna affirm those beliefs, those simple beliefs you have. Sorry, I'm a spitter, so I'm gonna be. Never mind. That's something else. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about chapter two, where Jesus turns water into wine. This is pretty famous. People know about his story about him turning water into wine. They have a bunch of jokes on it. I think even there's a manga on Jesus turning water into wine, uh, and an anime about him, like Jesus and Buddha, and Jesus accidentally turning water into wine. It's Let's just say if you really care about your Christianity a lot, it's probably not a good idea. But if you're very mature in your faith and mature in your perspective, it's an interesting narrative that shows potentially the Japanese view of who they think Jesus looks like or Jesus appears to be. Is very interesting. Very weird. Yeah, but let's just say it's a different perspective, and it's almost a classical perspective of a popular narrative of how they think Jesus is. Um, you just have to see it for yourself. I think it's called like Sinning Brothers or something like that. I don't know, something like that. Uh, but let's start. Jesus turns water into wine. John chapter 2. On the third day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. Then, when the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." So, the perspective, the context is that there's a wedding, right? It's in Galilee. They're enjoying themselves. They have perhaps a popular choice of drink, which is wine, I guess. Uh, People want to debate if it's wine or grape juice. It doesn't really matter to me. I know it's a celebration, and the common theme of celebrations even today is to have ingest alcohol, liquor, perhaps back in their day, wine. Some say it wasn't as fermented. Personally, it doesn't matter to me. It's just a different drink. And it was necessary. So in the text, there's a certain drink that has run out, and Jesus' mother says, "Hey, Jesus, son, there's no more of this particular liquid." And it's not like they can like get it quickly, otherwise they wouldn't have need him. But he says, "Woman, why do you involve me? Jesus replied, my hour has not yet come." So when Jesus, he says, why are you involving me with this thing? My hour to reveal myself has not yet come. At least that's what I'm uh, proposing. He says, my hour has not yet come. I'm not, why should I put myself to do this stuff? It's not my time to go forth as the Messiah. Yet it seems to be contextually speaking that Jesus is, let me see if I'm streaming again, because I know this stuff is happening. Okay. Um, she seems to already have an understanding of his divine qualities, because she's a son, and I don't know what the role is of sons back in the ancient times. If they were like errand boys, hey, get this for me. But I know that she asked him for this particular thing that didn't have anything to do with him. It wasn't Jesus's wedding. It wasn't Mary's wedding. They were just there, and maybe it was a cousin or something like that. I don't know. But Mary said, "Hey, Jesus, there's no more wine. So I would think she would have had some knowledge of his abilities, his divine capabilities. Jesus, there's no more wine. I'm your son, Mary. Why are you calling me for this? Probably because she knows something we don't. She is inferring something we don't. You have things, you got qualities that no average person got. You can get them wine. And he's like, you know, my hour has not yet come. So she probably seen some stuff. So that's my inference. His mother said to the servants, so there were servants there. So maybe he was wealthy. That he has the guy at the wedding had servants or family. I don't really know. But his mother says to the servants, do whatever he tells you. So her expectation maybe is to obey, maybe it's to simply fulfill her requests, but she suggests that the servants do whatever he tells her. So perhaps he's gonna do something. Perhaps he's gonna honor her requests. Maybe as her mother, maybe as since he's the child, maybe because she is mother of Jesus. I don't know, but I know that she understands that he's going to fulfill her request that she asks, and so she infers it. She suggests it among the servants to, or she asked it, or maybe demanded, maybe commanded, but she says, "Do whatever he tells you." Nearby stood six stone water jars, the kind used by Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. So these are heavy stone basins or stone water jars. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. So these are 20 to 30 gallons. This is a lot. Now draw some. Then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." So they filled it with water, and he told them, "Draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." How did it happen? I don't know. I don't know. They said they did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, so he didn't do anything to receive that wine. He didn't change it into anything. He was surprised that he got this kind of wine. He did not realize where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. And that's another parallel I do want to add. It always of people during this time, especially in Jesus' life, had the exposure that the rich didn't particularly have. So, like when Jesus was born, what is it? The farmers, the sheep herders and stuff, they received this blessing. They received it, the vision, the sight, the clarity. The rich then seem to have gotten it. Some of them did, like the centurion. He like, I know you can do this, so do this for me, and please before my little boy dies. You think Romans were like out here asking Jewish people for anything? They're like, no, we are the ones who handle stuff. You guys just do your own thing. You guys aren't really Romans. At least that's the perspective I get. But that's just something I always found to be pretty interesting. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's just some parallels that I found for that. Then he called the bridegroom aside, and he called it the bridegroom. So the master of the banquet, and he called the bridegroom. Hey, so this is your wedding. Come here, bridegroom. You know. And then he said, everyone brings out the choice wine first and the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now. So the master of the banquet tells the bridegroom, hey, man, usually we get the good stuff first, and then we get the bad stuff after people have too much to drink. But you saved the good stuff till now. But you have saved the best till now. So it was better than the choicest of wines that they did have. So Jesus was really dishing out some really good stuff, whether it's grape juice or actual alcohol or whatever. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't particularly matter to me, but all I know is in this ceremony that they drank a lot. They drank some good stuff, and then after they had too much to drink, they get some cheap stuff, which means they drank a lot, you know. But so Jesus, I don't know. It seems to me that Jesus didn't shy away from honoring a request of his mother for a celebration or a ceremony. It's not to support drunkenness, but it is to support a celebration. So at the request of his mother. And so They say what Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum with his mother and brothers and his disciples. There they stayed for a few days. So, this is, I get, as I just said, his first sign. I mean, I'm sorry, that's kind of so explanatory. It pretty much tells you it. Um, I think that's it. Jesus honored his mother's request. His mother asked for something. He asked her, "Why do you involve me in this?" As if it was inappropriate to involve him. And sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear me. I think I get like a little frustrated because sometimes this thing don't work. Um, but he honors his mother's request. His mother's request, bring more wine. They ran out. Keep the festivities going. And even though it was particularly inappropriate for his mother to ask that of his son, who is the son of man, son of God, he still honors her request. And you see throughout scripture that people ask him of stuff, and he says that's inappropriate to ask me. Like that lady who wasn't even a Jewish woman, she asked him, "Hey, could you help me out with this thing?" And he says, I'm only here to help the Jewish people out." And she's like, "Please help me." And he's like, "Your faith has helped you." You know, so even though it was inappropriate for this non-believing woman or non-Jewish woman to ask Jesus to help her, and even though he was gonna like kind of throw her aside, she still persisted. So that's an interesting aspect of faith: persistence with your faith, even if it might be inappropriate. And that's something that Jesus seems to have a promotion for. Um, I want to talk about this, but I'll wait to another video. When Jesus clears out the temple courts, is another aspect of Jesus. Why he's obedient, he's very passionate about certain things, especially the things that involve God and the person he dubs as he calls his father. Um, so, I mean, if you're interested, I'll still keep going, but I think I'll keep going. I don't know. Um, when it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, this is 13. Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple courts, he found people selling cattle, sheep, doves, and others sitting at the table exchanging money. So he made a whip out of cords and drove them from the temple courts, both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins of the money changer and overturned their tables. To those who sold doves, he said, "Get these out of here. Stop turning my father's house into a market." His disciples remembered that it is written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." Then the Jews responded to him, "What sign can you show us to prove your authority to do all this? So what right do you have to do all this?" And Jesus tells them, "Destroy this temple and I will raise it again in 3 days." So the temple, okay, it explains it. They said, "It has taken 46 years to build this temple and you are going to raise it in 3 days?" But the temple he had spoken of was his body. Um, so small recap. Jesus saying something that was inappropriate, and this wasn't in request. This was like his own volition, and he had such zeal for his own house that what he seen was inappropriate, and that he personally handled the situation. He personally drove these people out of here, and those he sold doves. He says, "Get these out of here! Stop turning my father's house into a marketplace or a market." Because he found it to be very like wildly inappropriate to turn his father's house of worship, which is God, Yahweh, his house of worship, into a place of commerce. It just shows that, at least in my perspective, um, how inappropriate potentially today is turning God's house into a marketplace. Because from what I understand, they had a certain portion they gave to the temple to fund the temple, but it wasn't a place to make money. And Jesus had, since he does affirm that the old scripture, "Zeal for your house will consume me." Like his zeal for having the house of God be maintained simply as a place of worship and admiration and adoration and reverence and respect overrided his tolerance for the word of the place of God to be a market, to be transformed, transfixed into a marketplace. He's like, this is not a marketplace. This is my father's house, And I guess it makes sense, if it's your father's house and your father's house is not a party, and you love, you have such zeal for your father, and somebody, friend, family, whatever like that, turns it into something that is not, that it was unintended for. Your zeal for your father's house might consume you, and your belief about your father's house might drive you to get a whip cords and whip people out of there too, and start overturning tables. Like, this, everything has to go from here. Everything that's not adequately my father's house has to not be here right now or anymore. And they say, okay, what right do you have to do this? And he says, I will resurrect myself after 3 days. But he uses terms like his temple, destroy this temple, this body, So to show his defense, he says, I have the right because I will die and I will come back in 3 days. That will show that I have the right to drive people out of here. So Jesus shows, hey, I'm divine. My father's house is divine. So I have the right to drive these people who are essentially corrupting the nature of my father's house into a place that's not divine. That's a place that is of commerce. This is inappropriate. These people have to get out of here. And it shows his zeal for holiness. This is not, my father's house is separate from everything else and deserves to be that. If you turn into something so common as a marketplace, it's totally offensive and it needs to get out of here. And now I'm going to 22. After he was raised from the dead, his disciples recall what he had said. Then they believed the scripture and the words that Jesus spoken. So remember what he said after he rose from the dead. It's like, oh, okay, wow. So he must be divine, since he said broke this temple, and he was probably meaning his body, because he rose after 3 days. So Jesus was really out here saying, like, my right, like, I have the right to drive these people out of the temple because this is my father's house. My father's divine and I'm divine too. So I'm driving these people out by my father's divine right. And divinely speaking, these people shouldn't even be here. Making this place of sacredness, specialness, holiness, set apartness into a place of business, common business, not even common business, just business. Like, it's inappropriate. Now, that's it. I got the other stuff, but I'll have it another time if I can remember it. But those are new aspects. Jesus honored people's faithful requests. Jesus himself had passion for his father's house, and Jesus had the divinity and therefore the divine justification to drive people out of his father's house, because he knew what was appropriate for his father's house. And also you shouldn't turn God's place into a place of business. It's just inappropriate. So next we'll be talking about from 23 to 25 and probably onward, maybe, I don't know. We'll see what God has planned for me and potentially for you guys. I don't, we'll see. Let's just say that. We'll just see what happens, what God has planned. But that's it. Hopefully it helps.